Raise your hand if you want to be ahead of the curve. Excellent. The reason I chose to give this keynote address to Toastmasters is that everyone in this room wants to be ahead of the curve. All of you are taking your free time and your out-of-pocket money to be here to improve yourselves, to learn how to be better public speakers. But what if I could help you learn about a new wave of technology that is going to influence every single person's life? Now, I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Bitcoin. Every hand. Now, raise your hand if you've ever heard of blockchain. Keep your hand up if you understand blockchain. Excellent! I have something relevant to share with you. Blockchain is going to be bringing trust to the internet. For example, when you want to buy a car off of Craigslist, you're not really sure that the car exists. You're not really sure that the person who says they own the car really does own that car. You're not really sure that it does have 50,000 miles on it. Blockchain is going to bring trust to the internet that currently does not exist. What's special about blockchain is that it is the engine that makes Bitcoin work. So imagine that Bitcoin is like a car. It's a Ferrari. Everyone's very excited when they see this beautiful car coming down Boylston Street. However, right now it's not perfect. It is a one-cylinder Ferrari. When you lift the hood of Bitcoin and you look at the engine, which is blockchain, blockchain is the back office that makes all those Bitcoin transactions work. The problem is, actually several problems. The big one is Bitcoin cannot scale. Bitcoin also uses a ton of electricity. For Bitcoin to actually work, there are these math problems that get solved. These math problems require so much computer power that it uses a lot of energy. Now, for example, all the energy that is used by Visa in a year to do all the transactions that we do in the United States would electrify about 50,000 houses. It's not that much, it's a small town. Now, Bitcoin has around $200 billion in it. That's still not a lot of money in the whole world. But right now, the energy that is required to manage $200 billion of Bitcoin transactions would electrify 3 million homes today. At its current rate, by 2050, Bitcoin is going to be using enough electricity to power the entire United States. So it actually increases global warming because most of the computers that are firing Bitcoin are in China, in Sichuan province, Xinjiang province, and they're fired by coal. So a lot of millennials love Bitcoin, but actually you're really encouraging some of the dirtiest energy out there. However, this keynote is not about Bitcoin, it's about blockchain, the engine that makes Bitcoin work. So what exactly is blockchain? I like to use an analogy because it's much easier to understand. So imagine, these by the way, are blockchains. You have blocks that are chained together. That's it. That's all blockchain really means. However, it's how it gets applied that becomes important. So imagine that we want to do voting. Imagine this is a ballot and you voted for the blue party. Here's another ballot and you voted for the red party. Blue party, blue party. These are all chained together. Each ballot is a block of data. Imagine someone photographing it with a phone, turning it into a PDF, and then chaining it. So you vote for blue, you vote for red, you vote for blue, you vote for blue. We chain it together. Now imagine you vote for a presidential election on your phone. That's probably going to get twice as many people voting in an election than vote now. Not that many people vote. It's pretty inconvenient. But imagine if you could vote on the phone. Why don't we vote on the phone? Because you can hack it. However, here's where blockchain becomes important. I vote for the blue party. Now I have a block of data that says who I voted for. Deb is going to vote on her phone, And that block of data is going to be chained to mine. And then Juliet will vote for blue. Trevor is going to vote for blue. Now we have a blockchain. Here's where the security comes in. We copy-paste this blockchain over multiple servers around the world. Let's say 50, 100, 1,000 servers. Now you have this copy everywhere in the open. Everyone sees it. It's not hidden. Everyone can see this blockchain of data and who voted for who. They don't know your name. They know that voter A voted the way you did. However, what happens is, let's say a hacker comes along and I want to change this vote. I want to change it to blue. Here's the first vote, the second vote, the third vote, the fourth vote. Once something is manipulated, let's say I try to hack this. Once I hack this, the chain is broken. And now you're left with that. But you still have all the other blockchains around the internet. When the election's over, we want to find out who won. Well, we can see, oh, well, 95% of all the blockchains said that the blue party won with 80.75% of the vote. And this blockchain was hacked. So we're just going to ignore it. So that's where the safety comes in. It's having it in the public is what makes it special. So imagine right now if you had a very expensive diamond ring. And let's say that you put it in this basket. Well, most people would take a diamond ring, put it in this basket, and they're going to hide it in a safe. And then they're going to have security cameras on it. It's going to be in the basement of a building, lots of locks and keys and security guards. If someone steals it, you're probably not going to see it because it's so deeply buried in the basement of a building. However, what if you took this diamond and you put it right in the middle of the room? You know it's mine, because I tell people it's mine. My name's on it. Thank you. Everyone knows that Trevor stole the diamond. And that's what's going to prevent Trevor from stealing the diamond, because the community is the security. By everyone seeing the diamond out in the open, no one's going to steal it. You could take it, but where are you going to go? Everyone's going to say, yeah, I saw that diamond being sold on eBay, call Trevor, so we know what's going on, and that's where the security comes. Also, the second piece of security is coming from the fact that the blockchain is going to break once someone tries to manipulate it. So imagine when kings and queens would send letters to people, they would put a wax seal on it. Well, if someone wanted to manipulate that letter and change something, they had to break the seal. Now, when you got the letter, you could see that the seal was broken. You didn't know what was changed in the letter. But what you did know is you can't trust the contents because someone messed with it. Blockchain is the same way. You might not be able to see what someone changed, but you do know that it has been changed. And that's where the trust part is going to be coming in. So we can use blockchain for voting. Where else could we use it? When I teach this class at Harvard Extension in a few weeks, it's the first time we're going to be teaching it, my specialty is actually social entrepreneurship. And I asked myself, where could you help people on a social entrepreneurship basis? Mostly I try to help people figure out how do you create jobs for refugees. Now remember that we just had a hurricane in Puerto Rico. One of the challenges with that hurricane was that the cleanup hasn't been completed. A lot of Puerto Rican teachers have come to Florida to become teachers again, but they're not teachers. They're teachers' aides. They're starting over because they don't have the documentation that says that they passed these teachers' tests 15, 20 years ago. These are experienced teachers. Everyone knows and looks at them and can just watch them teach a class and say, I know you've been teaching for 20 years. Sorry, you don't have the paperwork. But watch what blockchain could do. Imagine that before the hurricane hits, I take a photograph of my birth certificate and I put it on a blockchain with my name on it. Then I also take a picture of my social security number and I put it up on my blockchain. I take a picture of my high school diploma. I take a picture of my Bachelor of Science, my PhD, whatever degrees I have. Maybe I take a picture of my Vanguard IRA balance. Maybe I take a picture of my Capital One checking account balance to show that I actually have some money. So now there's this record. The hurricane comes, I leave with nothing. But if the blockchain technology, and this is actually happening, can have biometrics on it. So I could be in a refugee camp and go up to a refugee camp guard or administrator and do a biometric scan, which means, hi, here's my thumbprint, here's my retina scan. Imagine that. I can identify myself. If you really want to get crazy about it, you can do DNA swabbing with saliva. So you can figure out exactly who I am. The biometrics are so good that people in third world nations have their fingerprints rubbed off because they do so much manual labor. But there are biometrics that can actually create a fingerprint out of a finger that has most of it rubbed off. So now with this biometrics, it could pull up my account that says, this is Michael McCarthy, and he was born in Baltimore, Maryland. This is his social security number. He went to Glenelg High School, and he went to New York University. And he has money at Vanguard. He has money in a Capital One account. Guess what? Michael could afford to buy a plane ticket to fly out of the refugee camp. And where would I get the money from? From my Bitcoin account, which is a digital currency that is not controlled by a government, but it's going to be sitting in my phone. So I could actually liberate myself from a refugee camp, but only using blockchain. Now, I've taken a look at how Americans behave versus people in third world nations. I do a lot of traveling. And what I've found in lesser developed countries that have less money, much higher levels of poverty, they help each other. They're much more helpful to each other. When I go on a bus in Boston, where you typically have people with lower incomes, I see them helping people with baby carriages and saying hi to the driver, much more helpful than when I see them going into the Ritz. Because they have a common link, they're trying to help each other. They all have similar challenges and they get it. I find that in more developed countries, with wealthier countries, people are more selfish, more self-centered, and they're just grabbing stuff for themselves. And I thought to myself, when I was in a line getting on an airplane from San Francisco back to Boston a few days ago, the flight was oversold. And people trying to get off the wait list, the way they were going up to the stewardess at the desk, making up stories, oh, I'm going to a funeral, oh, I have to walk my dog, all these stories. Everyone had, the life was going to end for all these people if they didn't get off the wait list. And I thought, you people are lying. Not everyone needs to get off this list. Your life will not end if you don't get on the plane. But I found them to be incredibly selfish, and I thought, Americans would be the worst refugees. And we would just trample each other. However, blockchain is a bit of a no-brainer in my mind. I looked at my mom and my dad. They need medical care. They're 80 years old. You know, they're fine when everything's okay, but they couldn't survive in a refugee camp. Not at all. They couldn't pitch a tent. My mother has rods in her back. She can't sleep in a sleeping bag on the ground. They wouldn't survive very long. But with blockchain, they could put their fingerprint on a smartphone and say, we have enough money to fly out of here. Now, take Syrians. Syrians are highly educated people. A lot of them are doctors with PhDs. Imagine if you're in a refugee camp and you go up to the camp director and say, I'm a surgeon. I can actually operate on people in this camp who need medical care. Well, today, they won't let you because they don't know who you are. You could be lying. They have no idea what your qualifications are. Oh, well, just trust me. I'm sitting here in rags. I have nothing. But actually, I'm a surgeon. I can help you. No, we can't take that risk. But with blockchain, we could at least know that. And that's one of my favorite things about blockchain is that it can help refugees. Now next, we're going to get into what are called, and again, I'll poll the room. Raise your hand if you ever heard of smart contracts. Oh, excellent. So basically, blockchain is really a transaction ledger. It just lists transactions. That's all it does. Where it becomes special is the fact that it has been copy-pasted all over the internet so that we also know that you cannot change the record. It's basically like etching something in stone. You can't change it, but if you try, We might not know what you changed, but we'll know that you did change it, so we know not to trust it. When we get into smart contracts, this is basically a blockchain that's going to have a contract next to it that will execute automatically without you having to do anything. So imagine that I want to buy some insulin. So I'm a manufacturer in Vietnam, and you're a pharmaceutical company in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You call me and say, I want to buy some insulin from you. Okay, fine. It's $1 million for this large quantity. Send me a 50% deposit. This is all going to be in this smart contract, which is basically a Word document with an Excel spreadsheet attached to it. And it's going to say, give me $500,000 now. I'm going to make these vials and put them on a ship within 90 days. If I don't, your money gets wired back to you automatically. You don't even have to call me. So if I don't give you a receipt that this stuff has gotten on a ship within 90 days, your money gets wired back automatically. Once it's on the ship, we're going to put a thermometer on the insulin. Because this insulin is special, it can only be between 50 and 70 degrees. So imagine that this thing with a beacon on it is going through the ocean and oops, something happened to the ship. It got diverted and it's gone down to the equator where it's really, really hot. The temperature just blew 95 degrees. The beacon is going to contact the smart contract and say the insulin just went above 95 degrees. Well, you're only going to pay for it if it can be delivered between 50 and 75 degrees. Once the temperature says we're above it, boom, your $500,000 gets returned to you. If it makes it to you, then you know that it's good, and then you wire me. The minute it receives, and you pick it up in, let's say, San Francisco or Cambridge, where you ordered it, once you get it off the boat, and it says that you picked it up off the boat, boom, the $500,000, the remaining balance, gets wired to me automatically. Now, where does this help? It reduces what's called friction. Meaning, you don't have to call and say, hey, where's my stuff? Did it get on the ship? And I go, well, give us an extra day, we're a little bit behind. Or when the insulin comes, how much money do you have to spend to test that this insulin's good? Well, that costs you money. And what if it's bad? You spent $500,000 that you hope to get back because I violated the contract. You spent all this time waiting for it. When you did get it, it was bad. You spent money on those lab costs, but then you call me and say, I want my money back. And I go, no, 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 no. Everything's fine. I don't really trust that your lab results were bad. You're trying to steal from me. Send me the vaccine back so that I can verify that it really is bad. Well, now you have to pay for that. Another 90 days goes by. So all the time, all the money, all the expense, but with a smart contract on a blockchain, everything executes automatically. Now, where are you going to see this in your life? Probably in Airbnb. Where what will happen is you go to Airbnb, say, I want to get this room. Let's say it's in Trinity Church, you want to rent this room. Excellent. You're going to have a smart contract that says, give me half the money now. Once that happens, you're going to be texted a code that's going to open up the number pad on the door. The door opens. Now let's say that there's a security camera that's in the room, and I'm the owner, and I look at it and I say, well, you broke the window. Well, automatically, boom, I'm going to take your security deposit, and I'm going to change the PIN code on the pad and lock you out for when you leave. And you don't even have to be present for it. You could be on vacation just looking at the security camera on the phone. It's all recorded. So if you complain and say, hey, I didn't break the window, well, actually, here's the playback. So these are some of the things that blockchain can do for you. It's actually going to change every person's life. You're going to notice it in the beginning with banking. So right now, when you want to buy a stock or a bond, it takes seconds. But it takes 3 days to settle. 3 days for all the paperwork to wiggle out. You're going to be seeing stocks and bonds settling in seconds, which is what is so important about Bitcoin. I'm not predicting that Bitcoin is going to be this wonderful thing, but I am predicting that components of Bitcoin are going to be working, and you're going to be noticing that a lot of things happen faster for you, and the big winner with blockchain is going to be consumers, because it's going to make things less expensive for you. A lot of middlemen are going to be losing their jobs. And if you have an interest in being involved in blockchain, being a blockchain developer, actually working for a company to put blockchain into an industry is where there's going to be quite a bit of money. So I encourage you to stay ahead of the curve, and thank you for listening.